We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Terence Bud Crawford says he's that good, and y'all will soon understand why certain fights haven't come into play. We're going to talk about that. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Listen, not sure how you found the video, but somehow, some way, you made it. Please help others arrive at the content by throwing a like on the video. It's quick, it's harmless, and it goes a long way when you guys can do that. Now, Terence Crawford is quoted. He did an interview with Mark Kriegel. This is what Terence Crawford had to say. Quote, "They're going to understand why certain fights haven't manifested and come to fruition. It's because I'm that good. Everything I've done, the question is always, well, what about welterweight? Welterweight this or welterweight that. This is one of the top welterweights that I am facing. This is my time to show the world who Terence Crawford really is in the welterweight division." End quote. Now, Terence Crawford, to me, he seems to have a chip on his shoulder. I don't know if it's good or bad or if it's just there. But Terence Crawford, he seems to have this chip on his shoulder, almost as if he's Tupac, you know, me against the world. And as if he has this army or drove of people that don't respect his craft. You know, he's constantly saying, oh, the haters and doubters. And for the most part, you know, I can only speak for me and my channel and what I've readily seen. I think most people that I've encountered have given Terence Crawford respect as a fighter in general. Like, I can't think of anybody of notoriety or a professional trainer or pro fighter who said Terence Crawford is garbage or he can't fight. And that leads me to the criticisms that I have heard and that you've heard me say when it comes to Terence Crawford. And that's namely his run at welterweight, right? Terence Crawford on my channel, you never really heard too much criticism at 135. Really any criticism at 140. Because I feel 135, it's not like he had the best names available to him. You got to keep in mind, Terence Crawford got to 135, and just like Broner, there was only a handful of guys that he could possibly fight. The other fight in or around 135-40 that would have been great for Terence Crawford was Manny Pacquiao, who was with Top Rank at that particular time. But for whatever reason, Bob Arum, he let you know on record that he detonated the fight because he had a soft spot for Manny Pacquiao, or so says Bob Arum. This is what he put out there. So 135, 140, I feel like Terence Crawford really did what he could. 35 really wasn't stacked. And then at 140, he became undisputed. Herein lies the problem. When he moved up to 147 after becoming undisputed, people expected more greatness. But it was his career has been similar to 135 and almost less than 140. Because 140, he was fighting top-rated people. In Dongo, he was coming off a great win where he had pulled an upset against Troyanovsky. At the time, he was a top-rated threat, right? Victor Postal, that was another great fight in unification. At the time, people thought that Postal had a shot to win, and Postal had recently beaten guys like Lucas Matisse, who was the machine and a big puncher, right? So I had no problem with 35 and 40. You know, 135, as I mentioned, Broner and Terence Crawford, unfortunately, they were at a time where lightweight wasn't great. Like, you look in boxing, lightweight has been historically a great division. You've seen the likes of Roberto Duran, Hands of Stone, Sugar Shane Mosley, Floyd Mayweather, right? You've seen these Nate Campbell. You've seen great guys, Eric Morales, compete at the lightweight division. But at the time Broner and Terence Crawford got there really weren't names. There weren't that many big names. Even Broner and Terence Crawford weren't really at 135 at the same time. Broner was kind of up there, and then he jumped up all these weight classes to fight Paulie Malignaggi and then Maidana. And then we know what happened in the Maidana fight. And he never really was able to make it back down to 135. So that's just the luck of the draw. But at 147, people felt this is another historically great division, and Terence Crawford will have an abundance of people he could potentially fight, right? And that just hasn't been the case. So Terence Crawford, he seems like he has this angry chip on his shoulder, as if fans are just quote unquote hating on him. And I don't really see that. I think as a celebrity or a pro athlete, you have to embrace the good with the bad. Now, again, everybody bows down to Terence Crawford in terms of him being a complete great fighter and a skilled fighter. The biggest gripe that I've seen or that I've expressed is he just hasn't been able to fight the names. And it seems like Terence Crawford, I can't speak for him, but it seems from the outside looking in, it seems that Terence Crawford really resents the fact that the PBC guys have bigger names and they've kind of made the big checks, and they've been able to fight amongst each other and garner that respect. And Terence Crawford, he feels like, to me, it feels like he has a chip on his shoulder because he hasn't been able to experience that, because he's been the black sheep, you know? He's been the black sheep of the division, where you got to look at Terence Crawford's career. Terence Crawford's very first fight at welterweight was a title shot. So ever since he moved up from being undisputed, and I was at his undisputed fight, and I was at his fight when he first became a champion, this was years ago, and that was against Jeff Horn. So it really almost put pressure on him immediately, because every single fight thereafter, Terence Crawford has been a champion. And his promoter and his team and manager, Bomac, they have not been able to secure the big names until this moment with Sean Porter. And even in Sean Porter, and this is in no way, shape, or form meant to disrespect the fight, because I am looking forward to see it. But you have Terence Crawford, who again seems like he has this chip on his shoulder, like he can't get a fair shake. And I've even heard Terence Crawford say stuff to the effect of, people will probably respect me when I'm retired. And I really don't think that's the case. He's almost talking as if he's Floyd Mayweather. And we know Floyd Mayweather for certain received unfair criticism and unfair hate. The things that I have personally heard people say about Terence Crawford has never been about he can't fight or he's not ambidextrous or anything. It's all been, hey, your run at welterweight has been pretty weak. You know, you're fighting the names you have fought, like Amir Khan and Kell Brook. So realistically, right? You're fighting them at a point where most people think they're washed. And that's just the reality of it. Terence Crawford himself said that, at least when it comes to Amir Khan. You can't say that this was a prime welterweight Kell Brook, because he hadn't fought at welterweight since the Errol Spence loss in 2017, and Crawford just fought him in 2020 in like November, December. You can't say this is a prime Amir Khan, because if Terence Crawford fought Amir Khan after the Luis Collazo performance, or if he fought him after the Devin Alexander performance, those were perhaps Amir Khan's best performances at welterweight. But Crawford got him years later after Canelo Alvarez payday had knocked him out crazy. And he had took a year off and then came back, fought Phil LaGreco. It was literally a 40-second fight, 38-second fight. And then his very next fight, he struggled with Samuel Vargas, a guy that Errol Spence knocked out, Danny Garcia knocked out, and Virgil Ortiz would later knock out with ease, right? And this is a guy that Amir Khan struggled with, and that's the fight directly before the Crawford fight. So I'm a fair person when it comes to this boxing, and I just don't understand why Crawford feels compelled that like people aren't on his side and stuff. Like he feels like he has like this chip on his shoulder. And I feel this is just really how his career has went. And some guys have that type of career. Your team hasn't been able to get the major fights. Therefore, you've struggled to impress beyond just the performance. Like, people give credit, okay, you knocked out Mean Machine. But, I mean, I could do this all day. Mean Machine was coming off a Ray Robinson performance, and he really should have lost. So, if you would have fought Ugas after he beat Pacquiao, anything like that, you won't get the same type of criticism. And again, I'm not saying anything negative. I do like the Crawford Porter Sean Porter fight, but at the end of the day, even that, Crawford himself said Keith Thurman is a bigger fight. That's what he said, right? And then beyond that is the fact is Sean Porter, all of his major step ups to the Kell Brooks, to the Errol Spences, to the Keith Thurmans, he's lost those fights, except for the Danny Garcia fight, and that was razor thin. Some people even had Danny Garcia winning. So Crawford's bragging like, I'm going to show you what I can do and shut the whole game up. And you could tell he's taking a shot at Errol Spence, which it seems rather weird because Errol Spence, before his accident, he already beat Sean Porter. So if you look at Terence Crawford's last two opponents, Kell Brook and Sean Porter, these are literally guys that Errol Spence beat already. So as boxing fans say, Errol Spence leftovers. Errol Spence already beat Sean Porter probably in 2019. I was there in a unification, took his belt, dropped him, right? And then Kell Brook, he beat him in 2017 before Sean Porter, before Mikey Garcia. So I don't know, it's just weird because Crawford almost has like this cocky attitude about like, hey, I'm fighting Sean Porter and I'm going to show you what I can do. I still think there is something to be gained if he has a sensational performance because Sean Porter has not withered. Sean Porter is very durable and he's experienced. So if Terence Crawford is able to defeat Sean Porter in such a fashion that is shocking to see, like namely a stoppage, or if he just dominated him and beat him 12 rounds or tamed him and made it look easy, basically has an easy fight or a knockout, I think there is something that could be salvaged there in terms of you'll get a lot of credit there. But other than that, it's kind of weird because I feel Sean Porter is a guy that Terence Crawford's fighting, and it's still a good fight, but Crawford is like almost facetious about it or like rub it into your face a little bit. Kind of hard to explain, but that's just my thoughts. We'll see. The fight is next month. We'll see how it plays off. I think Sean Porter is a tough fight for anybody. So if Terence Crawford is able to get through him, then you know he's going to get a lot of credit for it. But I just feel Terence Crawford is almost braggadocious about it. But if we're playing that game at the end of the day, Errol Spence already beat Sean Porter. Kell Brook already beat Sean Porter. A guy you already beat. You see what I'm saying? So I just feel like what is being said has to be measured and has to be, you know, presented in a certain way. You know, that's my opinion. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know how I did in the video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working.